Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending where you are in the world. Thank you for joining us on our today's workshop on the ROI of development experience. My name is Ramiro Berroyesa. I am the co-founder and CEO of Okteto. And platform engineering and developer experience are topics that are now becoming very popular in the world of like software engineering, and with reason. These are very important topics for all of us to care about, to understand. However, something that I've noticed, as part of the ecosystem, is we talk about developer experience. We talk about how important it is. We talk about why companies have to invest on it, but we don't talk about the ROI. We don't talk about how can we measure if we're doing the right thing. A lot of times I think the speech goes around like good vibes and, hey, developers will tell you. But today, I want to cover the first three steps on your journey on measuring the ROI of your developer experience. We're going to be talking about why it's important to care about developer happiness. I'm going to propose some key metrics and measurement areas we can use to evaluate if our DevX initiatives are working. And then we'll talk about some high-level strategies on how to improve um, developer experience. So let's dive in. First, let's talk about why it's important, why developer happiness is important. I believe that developer happiness matters for the success of our business. There's a lot of research on this across every discipline on how healthy teams overperform unhealthy teams. Teams that have agency, teams that know what goals they're working towards, teams that have the right resources. These teams, over and over again, in business, in sports, in startups, in any other discipline, do better. There's Google did a lot of research on this, the topic of psychological safety. Highly recommend you search. There's a very accessible paper on this, and it's important. So it is important for our software teams to be healthy, to be happy. Well, why? Number two, software already ate the world. It's a cliche. For the past 10 years, we've been talking about software is eating the world. Well, it's a done deal. Every day, as soon as I woke up, I get coffee, I take a shower, I grab my breakfast. If you commute to work, you hop on a car on transit, or you hop on a Zoom call to start your day. Slack. We interact with software every day. At this point, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't interact with software at least 10, 20 times across the first hour or two of your day. So software is now a fundamental part of every business. And software is a huge business differentiator. This means that anybody who's good at building software is going to be better at business. Shipping value faster, shipping software faster means that you're going to be beating on your competition. And that is very important. The counter side of this is that friction, if you're not going fast, if you're not shipping value continuously, if you're not leveraging software to go faster, friction will slow down your business and your competition will beat you and they will take your business. And finally, and this is super important for teams of all sizes, but especially when you have a resource constrained team, and who doesn't these days, right? Happy and focused teams over delivered. I've been in software for more than 20 years. And I've seen this happen over and over again. The reason why startups routinely beat large companies is because they have happy, focused teams who are able to over deliver and defeat the proverbial, be the proverbial David to the Goliath. So it's very important, right, to understand why this matters and to really put resources on this. Because what happens if we don't invest in developer happiness? Well, the opposite happens. We have developer sadness. Developer sadness is when developers are just not excited about the work they do, when they're having a lot of friction, when they're having slow feedback loop. We see this all the time, through my role. I talk to a lot of like companies around the world, software teams, and they always bring up these things. slow feedback loop at all levels kills morale, makes developers sad. Complex onboarding, when you join a new project, when you join a new team, and then suddenly you have to like go through like a very long readme, that also like creates sadness. When I need to keep all this context on my head to do my work, that there's barely any room for like the cool things, for innovation. These things are what slow down teams, and this is what, when we're thinking about developer experience, we need to really like fight it. We don't want people to be experts for every single piece of the stack. You don't want to be this unclear ownership of a stack. Says, hey, I have this API. Who's the owner? Where do I figure it out? You want to fight the will it work in production? You don't want to have your developers feel like, okay, I have this code change. What's going to happen once it goes to production? Okay, I better schedule this in the morning because I want to be around in the office in case something breaks. Um, and you have developers who are very focused on the output. Hey, you need to fix this many bugs. You need to like uh, close on this feature without really understanding why you are doing. All of these things create challenges, and this is what today we want to talk about, and why we want to create a great dev experience and invest on it. But before we get deeper into this, let's do a fun experiment, and we're gonna ask you a question. So please type the answer to this question. Just type it. Do not press enter. I want everybody to kind of queue up an answer, and then we'll all submit it at once. So the question is, what is the biggest development challenge expressed by your teams? Think of the past, no, 2-3 weeks. What have you heard? Uh, Type it. Do not press enter yet. If you go to the chat tab, put them there. That one we'll see it, and then we'll discuss it. So, okay, 5 seconds to finish typing, and then on my count, please press enter, and we'll see all your answers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Press enter. Amazing. We have some great answers there. Thank you everybody for playing around with me. I love to make this a lot more interactive. So Steve mentions managing organizational complexity. Yes, that is super. It's a huge challenge that I've seen across many different teams. Accurate requirements, Adam. Yes, I'm assuming you mentioned like not having accurate requirements. That's something I've suffered through a lot of my career. Andy says having to hop on calls with engineers to help them debug something related to Terraform or AWS. Oh my God, yes. I just had a call before the webinar, and we were talking about Terraform and AWS, and how do you get a front-end engineer to troubleshoot something when Terraform is failing, right? And how they shouldn't have to deal at this level. John talks about slow dev environments. Anything that slows down the developer causes sadness. And Julio talks about deployment orchestration across services. Um, Definitely a lot of very interesting challenges. I agree. I think handling all of this are some of the common things we're seeing. It's really, I can really relate to all of this. I can tell you that I've seen each of this as something that I've personally experienced, that I've seen with our community, with our customers, and this is why like fighting these challenges, because we all know that by solving these challenges, we can create happier and more focused and teams that over deliver. Because at the end of the day, as I was saying earlier, this is all about using software to make our business grow, to deliver more value for our customers, and to delight customers and over deliver on their expectations, and to keep our teams happy and productive. As I'm sure all of you know here, developers can be hard to recruit, and you want to keep them happy because you want them to be productive and part of the team. Thank you. That was like super interesting. Thank you for that insight into the challenges that you're seeing. As I said before, it maps really well with the challenges we're seeing. So now that we talk about why happiness matters, what are the challenges? Now let's talk about some of the key metrics and measurement areas. Um, that we can use to kind of make sure that we are investing and we are improving our developer experience. First, I want to start with like a key tip because this is something that I've seen that teams really fail because of this. Like whenever somebody asks me, "Hey, what is the one thing I should avoid?" Is this: make sure that when you think about your developer experience um, efforts, projects, think about outcomes first and outputs second. A lot of people will go straight to like, okay, I have to speed up X, I have to reduce the complexity of Y, and those are great things to do. But before that, think about the outcomes. Think about what do you want to drive? What in 2 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, where do you want your team to be? What is this outcome you want to create? Is it faster onboarding? Is it a reduction in CI cycles? Is it how long people get to be productive with your team? Think of it first as an outcome, and then go from there to figure out, okay, what actions do I need to take? What output do I need to create to generate this outcome? This kind of might sound kind of boring sometimes. It does require a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting, but this is very important because if you don't do this, then you're acting just on pure intuition, and many times intuition is not enough. And we will talk more about this as we go on the workshop. So once we have like the first thing we have to identify as we think of developer experience is where can dev experience affect the work. And I like to think of these three different areas where we can measure the impact and the ROI of our developer experience initiatives. First, we have the inner loop. Very common. We talk about that a lot these days. Inner loop is everything that happens when a developer is writing code. How can I make that faster? How can I get them to type something on the keyboard and see the output of that typing, see the outcome of that typing as fast as possible, right? Can you automate dependencies? Can you automate installation? Can you automate environments? Can you do like that's kind of like the first area to think about. The second one is outer loop. This is what happens once the developer is done coding. You send a pull request, you commit maybe directly to main if you're not using pull requests, if you're doing other type of development to main or to whatever branch you have. It's like, what are all the activities that happen at that point? How do I go from I have a code change that I'm sure it works, I want this to be shipped, all the way to actually getting it shipped? Think about everything that happens on that portion of the development lifecycle. And then finally, the organizational loop. This is another topic that I wanted to mention today because I don't see enough people talking about this. Most people I know, when we talk about developer experience, they focus on the inner loop and the outer loop. Onboarding, dev environments, dependency, CI, build time, all those things, which are very important. But very few people talk about the organizational loop. For me, the organizational loop is everything that happens as part of the process of shipping software that doesn't entail writing code, decision making. How do we decide which feature is going to be shipped? How do we schedule the work? How do we define when the work is done? How do we communicate the success? How do we define the outcomes? When you work on a feature, how do you know if the work you put on the feature was worth it? Is anybody using your feature? Are your customers getting value out of this feature? This is, to me, equally, if not more important to fix than the inner and the outer loop. Because even though it's less visible, because you're not typing code, you're not facing it every day, in my experience, is the number one cause of developer sadness, is having friction with the organization. When you have developers who have great ideas and they cannot get them into the roadmap, when developers have no clue why they're building a feature, there's no understanding of the value their work provides to the product, that is a huge reason why developers change teams and sometimes leave organizations. I've worked on teams like that. I have made the mistake of focusing on the inner loop and outer loop and improving those things, but not focusing on the organizational loop. And the team suffers. So as leaders, as people who care about developer experience, it's very important that we don't forget about those as well. So inner loop, all the coding, fast, outer loop, what happens when I'm done coding, how do I see the results of my work, organizational loop, how do I understand my place in this, the reason for my work and why my work matters. So that's the first thing, right? Once you have these areas identified, you start to figure out, okay, which of these areas do I want to focus on? Which of these areas do I want to like put my efforts on? I do recommend pick one. Inner loop tends to be easier. Start there. Pick one and start building from there. Do not try to boil the ocean. Do not try to go for everything at once. It requires a lot of resources. It leads to frustration. It's better to find those early wins, find things that you can improve, and that way iterate. Um, so now that you have those areas defined, let's talk about some of the metrics you can use to figure this out. As I was saying earlier, when I talk about developer experience with my peers in the community in big conferences like KubeCon, we talk a lot about the importance. We talk a lot about why, but we don't talk about how do we measure that we're actually having a successful, like DevX experience. If you are in the world of like engineering leadership, if you're like a metrics geek like me, you may have heard of Dora or Space. These are two big efforts used to measure the velocity of teams. So I think we can use a very similar um, approach to their experience, where I recommend some of these metrics as a way to measure are we making a difference. First is the time to first PR. I like this one a lot because this is like, hey, somebody joins your team. They can be new, not new to the company. Maybe it's a new hire, somebody you recruited from a school, from the industry. Or it could be somebody who's changing from a different part of the company to your team. It's the same. In either case, I think it's important to measure the time to first PR. How long it took this person to be onboarded and then send a code change. How long did it took them to feel safe and with enough understanding to send a change to be reviewed. You can measure this as a way to understand, hey, is my onboarding process healthy? Are my developers, can they get enough context quick enough to start producing value? That is one great thing that I recommend you think about as you think of your dev experience initiatives. Number one is the time it takes for a PR to be merged to production. Okay, I send my PR. How long do they stay in the queue? How long does it take for the team to review and give feedback? How long it takes for a developer to take action on this feedback and submit something new? How long does it take for this PR to be on the merge queue? Like how many times does it go through CI? Capturing this data and having a historical information, hey, how long are my PRs taking to be merged to production, will also help you understand where are my bottlenecks? Where are my developers stuck? Are developers waiting too much for PR feedback? Are developers spending a lot of time rerunning things on CI because tests tend to fail the first few times? All of this would also give you very important insight on the inner loop, outer loop, and even the organizational loop. Third, and this is like one I've been using a lot lately, is the time to told you so. What I mean by this is how long it takes from the time your team gets together and thinks of a feature and decides, yes, we're going to build this feature, to when the person who proposed this feature says, see, I told you so. We should have built this. By this, I mean how long it takes from, if I put it in more boring terms, from feature definition all the way to measurable success of this feature. How long it takes for your customers to derive value from one of your features. I like this one also because I think this one helps you understand the work you're doing. Are you building the right features? Are you building them fast enough? Because the speed alone, which is what Dora measures, can be deceiving because you can be building very fast the wrong things. And if you're not iterating, if you're not finding this value, if you're not finding like the good things to build, the good things as the valuable things to build, then there's a lot of value in being that fast. So I like that a lot. The time to tell you so. It might be tricky to measure, and here's where, to quote Joe Bacon from CLC, progress over perfection. Do not get blocked too long in how do you measure it. It is important to measure it. It is important to find a consistency, but it's not the most important, right? Like, do the work step at a time, find something that works, iterates. Very important. And think of this as kind of three pillars of your DevX experience: is time to first PR, the time it takes for a PR to be merged to production, and the time to told you so. Um, so anyway, I've been talking about this for a bit. So before we kind of get into like how do now once we have our metrics, what do we do with them? Um, let's pause here and let's do a poll. I want to get a better understanding of where you are in your organization. So let's start with an easy one. I'm sure we all agree on this one. Which text editor has the best developer experience? Beam or Emacs? Are you a Beam or an Emacs kind of person? Uh, you can vote directly on the screen or on the poll section on the right. It's kind of for fun. Then we'll get into more DevXy questions, but hey, picking your text editor it's a very important aspect of your dev experience, right? Like, and I have to say, I'm very surprised. I think Bim's winning. At Okteto, I run this poll every now and then, and I have to say that I am a Vim kind of guy. I come from the DevOps world, so SSH and Vim are ingrained in my brain. But I'm glad to see more Vimers and less Emaxers today. That makes my heart happy. Well, this one was like just to kind of like test the waters, show you how the polling system works. So now let's get to some more real questions. The first one I would like to learn more about is: do you run internal developer surveys? Um, and anonymous poll, no judging here. I just want to kind of get a good sense of like where we are with this practice. So please, do you run internal developer surveys? Same as the one before, you can answer in the UI directly there. In the meantime, I'm gonna get a little bit of coffee. Votes are coming in, so remember you can vote directly on the screen or on the poll section. Um, so we have a few answers. Yes, we need it. A couple of people like not yet. I guess we should have added a question for like no. But this is great. Thank you for sharing this. This helps kind of like understand where we are as a community. And um, like a year ago, I would have gotten like zero. Like nobody knew what developer surveys are. It's great that we're seeing this progress and that our community is slowly getting more and more into this. Um, Amazing. 5 votes. Thank you. And then we have a third and final poll. I swear I'm going to go crazy on polls. This is it. But I would like to learn if you collect and monitor developer experience metrics. Yes, you have collect some. It doesn't have to be very formal. Just, is this something you track as part of your progress? Yes, no, or I don't know where to start. And I'm seeing a mix of things here. Very, very, very surprising. It's cool. We have some people say yes. Then we have another vote for no. I'm not sure. Yes. Okay, it's great. Two yes. Amazing. This is it's really cool. I like seeing that. I like seeing a world where like more and more people are measuring their dev experience. Because you know what? If you want to get more budget, you have to measure dev experience. That is very important. Um, all right. Well, thank you for participating. Makes it easier, more fun. Also gives me a break, so I can drink coffee and maybe rest my throat for a second. So we were talking about, okay, which dev experience we should be collecting, dev experience metrics we should be collecting. So now let's talk about how are we going to collect this information. Um, I believe it's very important to do both, and let's see if I can pronounce this correctly. We need to do both qualitative analysis, but also quantitative. This means we want to talk to developers. We want to hear their voice. We want to help them express their challenges, frustrations, and ideas. But we also want to have hard data on this and something we can measure without without having to discuss it or without feelings and other things involved. So I think it's very important to do two different efforts when it comes to measuring your DevX metrics. The first is developer surveys. As we saw from the poll, some people are already doing, and that's great. And this is very important. I recommend that you do developer surveys on a fixed frequency, quarterly, every 6 months, every 12. I would personally recommend you do either quarterly or every 6 months. Every year is too much. Every month is also, sorry, every year is not enough. It's too long of a wait. Every month is too much. But I think it's important. It's important to design a survey where you're asking developers open ended questions about the developer experience. The role of the survey is, as I was saying earlier, to give developers a space where they can voice their frustration, their concerns, and the things that are working from there. I recommend designing a very small survey, less than 5 questions. You don't have to get fancy here. There's tools for this. DevX.com is amazing. We use that at Okteto from Laura Tatch's company. But you can also use a Google form, 5 questions. At large companies we worked at before, we use just Google Forms, and that gave us a lot of information. What's important is make the survey consistently. Try to keep the same questions across time because you want to be able to measure how these questions change. And then very important is once you have those answers, sit down with your team, go over the answers, allocate a day or a few hours, go over through the answers and try to kind of create buckets of answers. Because even though every developer will have their own way of expressing their frustrations, what's blocking them, I'm sure you will find some themes. And this is important because, and this is for any of these measuring activities, you want to be transparent. You want to share the results back with your developers. Don't share the answers as is. I recommend that you keep them anonymous. That way, people will feel more trust to share what they really feel and not just, hey, everything is great. But share back the bucket. You can say, hey, we ran this survey, and out of 50 developers, 10 said that their biggest frustration is how long they have to wait for CI. Or as we said earlier on the chat, troubleshooting AWS and Terraform becomes the bigger, pain for them. Share it back. I found that sharing back the results and then sharing your plans of how to improve it is a great way to create a good feedback, a good organizational feedback loop where you prove, hey, I care about this. I'm not asking just because my boss told me to do this. We actually care about this. We want to make your life better. So do that. Keep the same questions. Do the same questions every 3 months for a year. Create buckets of answers. Share the results and create an action plan. That is number one. That's very important. So I was saying the voice of the developer, their frustration will come from these open-ended questions. The other thing I recommend to do, and I recommend you do both because doing one without the other might yield uncertain results, right? Is collect those DevX metrics. Find a way to do this automatically. I recommend the ones we were talking about before: time to first PR, how long it takes for a PR to be merged from production, the time to told you so, which might require some manual collecting, build time, deploy time, any of these metrics that you feel reflect some of these frustration points, capture the metrics. Why? Because it's very important to be able to have both measurements. You might run into a situation where The results of the survey don't change. People remain frustrated, even though your hard data proves, let's say that you will still are frustrated with like having to troubleshoot AWS failures on CI. But then you have data that shows that actually the time spent doing this has been reduced substantially over last year. Well, that's going to give you some information on maybe you're not advertising things, or maybe you need to reduce it even more because it's such a huge pain point that you need to invest more resources. That's why I believe it is important. I recommend to do both types of measurements. Hard data, automated, you can collect it for months at a time and then analyze the result, do the surveys quarterly, kind of have the same, design one survey for a year, keep doing the same questions 4 times a year, let's say, compare, contrast, share results, and then based on this, decide how you want to proceed. But it's very important you do both. It is very important that you listen, that you analyze, but it's also key that when you listen to your developers, you try to figure out what are they really saying. Because humans, we want to be nice. Or if you catch us in bad mood, we might be kind of a ranty feeling. But rarely are we going to be like super concrete. And this is exactly my pain point. So it is very important to do both developer surveys and also collecting DevX, DevX metrics. So once we have, we understand why it's important. We have our metrics, our surveys. We're doing them all the time. Okay, now it's time to actually improve the developer experience of our team, of our organization. And this is important. Might sound obvious, it might sound kind of dumb, but I have seen organizations, very large organizations, where um, most teams just stay on part one and part two. They understand the importance, they do surveys, and then they don't do anything. They believe that just by the surveys, that will create enough insight, enough motivation for change to happen. And that is rarely the case. Once we have all this information, we need to be agents of change. So, first thing to do, the first, and if you're only going to do one thing, do this. You need to have a clearly communicated and agreed goal of what we're looking to improve. Going back to the first section, going back to that tip I talked about, outcome over output. This is very important. You have to communicate this to your leadership and to your developers. We are going to improve X. We're going to change this. And make sure you have buy in from both leadership and for your development. It is very important to get buy in from leadership because you're going to need resources. Here's where we get into the ROI of dev experience. This is why outcomes are very important because company leadership, engineering leadership are very KPI driven, right? Their CEO, your CEO will task you with a goal. We need to improve this part of the business. We need to like get more users or sell more software or lower our costs, all of these things. So you need to be able to articulate how what you're proposing is going to benefit the business. And this is very important because if you want resources, money, headcount, attention, time, you need to be good at articulating a very clear outcome. It's key here that you tie your outcomes to a company KPI. Align with your leader, whether it's the VP of engineering, the CTO, the CEO, your director, or if you are the leader, make sure that this is tied to a very clear company KPI. We need to prove in very concrete manners that investing on this will improve the company outcome. Development leadership doesn't care about their workflows. They don't care about fast inner loops. They don't care about friction. They care about, is my business going forward? Are we hitting our goals for the year? So it's very important to articulate this. And the other side, it is crucial to get buy-in from developers. Top-down initiatives rarely work. Telling developers, now you're going to use this tool. Now you're going to now you're going to start using ephemeral environments for development and just making it a mandate, it's not going to work. This is where going back to having a clear outcome helps. If you build trust, communicate the outcome, explain to your developers why this is important, especially when you need them to take action, will help you get goodwill, benefit of the doubt, and the participation of the different dev teams. This is where most initiatives fail. In my experience, in my career, most dev experience initiatives fail because they're not able to articulate a clear outcome, clear goal that appeals to both leadership and to the developers on their teams. It's not easy. This is a skill on its own, but it's something that I highly recommend you practice. This is why starting small, kind of like practice small initiatives, just like with product, build an MVP, start small, deliver, iterate is very, very important. Uh, the second thing to take into consideration here is you want to create a culture of collaboration and high trust. You don't want developer experience to be something owned by one team or one champion. You need this to be across organization. This is why it's very important to express your outcome, show progress, and even in some cases, dare to be vulnerable. Show when things don't work, show when things are working. So I was saying before, when you do a survey, not don't just do the survey, then follow up with the results. Share the results. Do not share what we will tell you anonymously. Just remove the name, rewrite it, just share buckets of answers, but send it back. Treat them as your community. Show them, hey, we are listening to you. This is what you care about. These are the problems you expressed. And this is the plan for Q2, let's say. We're going to focus on this area because of XYZ. Communicating, early wins, listening, sharing progress are great ways to create collaboration and high trust. There's no magic here. We're working with humans. This is the same thing that we do for any other kind of initiative. So DevX is no different. Get this buy-in, build collaboration, early wins, and that way more people will sign up for the next one. Um, something here also that's very important is have a roadmap. Like a lot of these initiatives also fail because you have someone very excited and they find this one thing they're passionate about. Let's say we have a very slow build. We're gonna fix this build, and then they fix the build, and then they go away. That's it. Great. Developer experience is not like that. I always like to use the metaphor of like the garden, where developer experience is something you have to tend. It's a long term effort. You need to have a roadmap. Treat it as a product. Have ideas, express why you're doing X and not Y, mention when you're going to engage in these other things. And this is very important because once you have a roadmap, you're going to start appealing to more people. And then you're going to start finding those developer experience champions. You cannot do this on your own. There is no way that a central developer experience team, if you have it, is going to be successful without developers helping. You need somebody to, sing your praises, to talk about how better things are, to be willing to mentor others on these new tools that you're building, on this new initiative you're rolling out. So having a roadmap, sharing the success, the progress, and then kind of finding these people that help, it's very important to make sure that you're successful. The other thing that I see happens a lot is, and this is kind of more like a warning as you build your developer experience, especially as you build tools, is be very careful and you need to take a kind of a conscious action on don't become the team that says no. It's very important to build paved roads. So people call them golden paths, the easy way. This is the developer experience for the company. If you use these tools, everything is easy. But remember, we're not here to say no. We're here to make the life easier for developers. So do allow off-roading. This applies especially if you're building very specific processes or tools. If you're building a platform, you're going to build like a new, software lifecycle flow. Keep in mind that there are always going to be special cases. Don't make the choice for the developers. Let them pick when they have a special case. Let them fail if needed, but do give them the choice. Say, hey, if you want the easy way, here's a paved road. let's say it's a platform, you're going to get automatic logging, authentication, access control, backups, like SLAs, etc. But if this is not good for you, there's this other, like rocky path. It's on you. Will give you, I don't know, access to the AWS infrastructure, and then it's on you. You make them the choice. You show them the path, and then they can pick. That way, you assist them, you enable them, but you don't force them, because being the team that says no is going to create a shadow DevX team, a shadow platform, a lot of animosity, and it's not worth it. We want buying. Um, and then finally, we talked about inner loop, outer loop, organizational loop. Start with the inner loop if possible. It's easier. Find a few developers, recruit them, make their lives easier. Why? Because inner loop involves less people. Then you have the outer loop, more teams. Then you have the organizational loop, which is maybe the entire company or the entire engineering team. Organizational loop is very important. It's crucial to improve it. I said it before, but it's also very hard. I know we've all been there where we see these problems with the company, we want to improve how we communicate, how we do planning, how we like prioritize features, how do we talk to customers. All of those things are very important and we have to fix them, but don't start there. Get some buy-in, get some early wins, and be successful. And once you have that, once you have this buy-in, once you have a healthy number of champions, then start pushing the envelope. Then start going for the more complex changes. Um, and this is what I have for this workshop. These are the three areas that I think are very important. So just to conclude, here are the three takeaways that I want you to kind of like keep in your mind as you think of your developer experience. First, find and communicate clear outcomes. This is crucial. Do not embark on a DevX journey without this. Get buy-in from leadership because you need resources. You need their backup. At some point, you might need them to kind of push some rocks away from you. Um, and have a roadmap. Remember that dev experience is not a one-off thing. It's something we want to incorporate on everything we do. So it will require constant care, constant work. So the more you have a roadmap, the more you're able to work on this consistently, the better. And then finally, we didn't cover this on this workshop, but you can take this as a bonus recap, bonus point. Market your wins. This is so important. When you do work for the developers, once you do that survey, once you ship something, and once you see some outcome that has been improved, market it, share it with everybody, do a quick celebratory video. We use Loom in Okteto to record this kind of early wins and share them with the team. Do that. Or, if you got budget, do like a little party and, get pizza or drinks or something. Market your wins because it's important for you, one, to celebrate your progress, but two, also to make it visible. So people know, hey, this team cares about me. They are making things better. Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know we could do X now. And then slowly, again, you build that very healthy cycle where you're doing work for everybody. Everybody sees the benefit. They give you more resources. They give you more time. They give you more goodwill. And that way you can invest um, more in more complex, more ambitious goals. Um, and that's it for now. This is all the content I had. I really hope it's useful to you. I hope you can learn a thing or two about how to measure the ROI of your developer experience initiatives. But before we close the session, I would like to open the virtual mic, I guess, to the floor to see if you have any questions. Um, and I see two there already. We'll go with those first, and then. But please keep asking. And if not, of course, after this, we will send you the recording, and you can reach out to me over that or over Twitter as well if you want to chat some more. But first question from Andy: do you have a template for some questions we should be asking developers? Yes, We do have a template. We're actually going to be sending you a worksheet we put together after the call uh, with with some suggestions on this. Um, but high level, I like to do like the NPS style question of from 1 to 5, how much do you love your job? The other question I find useful is what gets in the way of you doing the best work of your life? Number 3, how easy is it to get a change to production? And number 4, if you had a magic wand, what would you change of our software development process? The most important thing here is keep it simple, keep it consistent, but keep them open ended enough that you're not leaving the developer on a specific area or a specific kind of type of question. That's very important because you want them to be engaged here. Um, but great question. And then the second question for this is also, how do you recommend fixing low engagement on a developer survey? That's a really important question. In my experience, low engagement on a survey is a symptom of kind of low engagement on the developer experience process. Developers might not feel that it matters. It might not feel that the people doing the survey care about. There's no easy answer for this, but what I would recommend you do, what I've seen works really well, is kind of making an appeal in person. Going back to what we're saying about outcome, show them that you care. Talk to them about why the survey is important. What change are you trying to drive? And let's be realistic here, right? This is not like a political campaign where you're going to be offering the sun and the moon to everybody. It says, hey, we understand their frustrations. Help us. I always like using the word help me. Can you help me understand what is the pain point? We launched this survey. We didn't see a lot of participation. Could you please help me out? Do that, appeal to the managers and have them kind of bring this message to the developers on their one-on-ones. And again, this is why leadership buy-in is so important, because you need their support when things don't go great like this. That helps a lot. Humor, make fun. Kind of me. I like to use a lot of memes in my communication. I find that actually helps with engagement. Show that, hey, I want to make this better. I'm not taking things too seriously. Can you help? And at some point we can also take some clues from our friends in marketing. And one is keep sending it. Have a few touch points. Don't assume that you're going to send it once and people will remember. Use multiple mediums. Send an email. Remind people in Slack. Send them one messages every now and then. Do not overdo that because you don't want to be seen like a spammer. But kind of these appeals help. I found that also. I'm a big fan of Loom. So recording a Loom where you express why you want people to participate can be a good way to appeal to, hey, remember, we're humans and we want like help. I found those things that help, but do keep in mind that if you don't have high engagement, that might be a symptom of people not having a lot of buy-in on the work you're doing. They might not believe that it's real or the company cares. There might be some sarcasm about or some cynicism. So it's very important that if you see that, kind of attack it directly, and that's where those early wins help. And if you're not getting any traction, that's fine. Then try to figure it out. Pick one thing to improve it, show it to the team, market your wins, and tell them, hey, if you help me with the surveys, we're gonna fix more of these things. Here's proof of what we already did, and that could also help a lot. Thank you for the questions. Were very interesting. Um, any last minute of questions before we close the workshop? Right. Well, thank you so much for attending. If you have any more questions, if you want to continue the conversation on this, one is we're going to be sending you this. Second is if you're building platform for developers, check out our newsletter where we're going to curate and share stories and recommendations from platform builders to platform builders. DevX all day. You can click on that button to subscribe to our newsletter. You can scan the QR code and subscribe as well. It's this kind of content. We'll be talking. We talk there about developer experience. We want to share stories about success, techniques, and all around helping developer experience, platform engineers be successful and improve the life of everybody. Um, Thank you, everybody. My name is Ramiro. You can also find me on Twitter. You search for Ramiro Berreyesa on Twitter. I'm fairly active there if you want to connect. And thank you very much. I hope this was useful. And please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.